Hello, BookTube, and welcome to another weekly reading vlog. These are some of the books I've been working on this week, and I'm going to go through them briefly. I'm going to do my best to keep things brief, mention the books I've been reading this week, but I don't plan on talking in too much detail about any one of them for the usual reasons. It's late over here. I'm tired, and I need to finish this off and get to bed. And I'm sorry. I know I say that every week, and I'm beginning to sound a bit like a broken record. But what can I say? Every Sunday is the same. I spend all day working, and then come home and I'm busy with the kids. And then we finally get the kids off to bed, and then it's past my bedtime. So I'm always filming these weekly reading vlogs on borrowed time late at night. But here we are. So the first thing is I finished A Funeral for a Friend, the Superman comic. I had been on page 314. I returned the copy to the library, but I think there was 368 pages total. And I reviewed that on this channel. I think that was Tuesday night. I posted that Tuesday night my time. And I can't show it to you because I've already returned it to the library. And from the library, I actually have 3 comic books I checked out. So I've got a bit of a library book haul to report. Watchmen, and then Watchmen Doomsday Clock 1, and then Watchmen Doomsday Clock 2. These are all library books. So let me explain about this briefly. I'm working on a project with my school library to try and order books that will appeal to the students we have in order to get them reading more in English. I'm working at a school here in Vietnam. We were looking at the data of the books that have been checked out the most this past year. And one of the most popular graphic novels in our library was Watchmen, which surprised me, to be honest. I mean, I know this book is very popular with comic book geeks back in America, especially comic book geeks of a certain age. But I was surprised that it would be popular with Vietnamese teenagers. But there you go. I don't know if the Zack Snyder movie had anything to do with it, but it's been one of the most popular books that's been checked out. So, in an effort to capitalize on that popularity, I thought, well, what can we order to follow this up with? And as you probably already know, there is a sequel published to Watchmen where the Watchmen characters interact with the DC Universe characters. It's a bit of a notorious sequel because Alan Moore famously did not want anything like this to ever happen, and DC ignored his wishes. But I've not actually read it, nor do I know much about it. But I'm curious, so I thought I'd like to check these out. There, I don't know why they're 2 volumes. They're very slender volumes. These could easily be 1 volume, and in fact, there was a 1 volume version of this being sold. I don't remember why we didn't order that instead. I think it might have been more expensive than the 2 volumes sold separately. But I figured before I was going to review this, I may as well go back and review Watchmen first. Now, Watchmen is a reread. I came into this late. I didn't read Watchmen until the movie came out in 2008, 2009, but I did read it at that time. So this is a reread. Yes, I want to reread it and review it before I attempt to dissect the sequels. And I was a little bit worried. The comic books in the library tend to get checked out a lot. So I decided to just grab all 3 of these from the library and hoard them until I would be guaranteed to be able to work through them in order. So first Watchmen, then the sequels, book 1 and book 2. Now, me hoarding these books goes a little bit against the ethos of the project to get the students to read these books. So I'm going to try and read through these as quickly as possible and return them to the library as quickly as possible as I finish them off. So right now, this edition of Watchmen does not have cumulative page numbers. It just has the page numbers for the issues. So I am on issue 4 right now. Issue 4, page 22 of issue 4. Sorry, no cumulative page numbers here. And then these two will be on the bookshelf until I finish this off, and then I'll get around to these two. Okay, so those are the graphic novels for this week. Moving on then. Romance of the Three Kingdoms, I read from page 388 to page 456. I have less than 100 pages to go to finish off Volume 1. So when I finish off Volume 1, I'll attempt to do a plot summary of everything that happened in Volume 1, but I'm not going to try and do that for the weekly reading vlogs. I also, just last night, posted a review of a podcast I've been listening to, Discourse of the Three Kingdoms, which has been helping me a little bit get my bearings with this book. And I did my usual thing with that podcast where I listened to it 3 times through. But I've finished it now and I've reviewed it. And so now I'm just going to plow ahead with the book. Teaching Speaking, I finished off what chapter was that? 3 on spoken discourse and genres of speaking. No, sorry, chapter 5, spoken discourse and genres of speaking, which was talking about the different things that sociolinguistics have observed about how people speak in different situations. Like I mentioned last week, it was stuff I had read before in other books, but it was an interesting review. And I'm now on to chapter 6, a methodological framework, which is the first chapter of the designs and approaches section, where they talk about how you can actually use this knowledge in the classroom. Just barely into that chapter. So up to page 136 in this book. I regret to say that I barely read any of The Mirror and the Light this week. I just read 4 pages. Excuse me, I feel a sneeze. Feel a sneeze coming on. I've got a cold. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that in my voice. I feel like I'm always apologizing for having colds on this channel, but the kids are always picking up viruses from the playground and from their preschool and bringing it home, and we're just through one cold after another over here. Okay, and then the Bible, working through Numbers. This is another one that regrettably I did not make much progress on. Unfortunately, it's not been a great reading week. Part of that is because I've been prioritizing comic books, finishing off the Superman Funeral for a Friend, and then trying to make as much progress in Watchmen as possible so I can get it back to the library. But I didn't read Numbers all this week until actually just a few hours ago when I realized I hadn't made any progress all this week. And then I did read 4 pages. Finished off chapter 18, 19, 20, and 21, which has a lot of interesting stuff in it, actually. A lot of things we could talk about at length through a ritual here for the ashes of the red heifer, which the footnotes identify as an ancient half-magical custom that was assimilated into the Bible. And then the waters of Meribah, where Moses famously strikes the rock instead of speaking to the rock, and as a result, God says he's not to enter the land of Canaan, although there's a footnote here that says, actually it's a little bit unclear why Moses isn't entering the land of Canaan. They fight some other countries. The Israelites go to Edom. Edom refuses them passage. They don't fight Edom. They fight and capture and destroy a Canaanite town called Hormah. There's that famous story where they get attacked by the poisonous snakes because the Israelites are complaining again, and Moses puts the snake on the stick, which has since become like the medical symbol that the snake being hoisted up on the stick. Then they go to Transjordania, where they encounter some different towns. And then there's an interesting little passage here about the conquest of the Amorites, and it talks about the ancient town of Heshon, which was founded by the king of Shion, and talks about how the king of Shion had conquered Moab before the Israelites came. I mean, all this kind of Near Eastern history, and I know that they're mixing mythology in with that history very much, but it reminds me of why the Old Testament used to fascinate me so much when I was in junior high school. So interesting stuff in here, but like I said, I'm not going to get into it. We'll save that for another time. And that's all my weekly reading for this week. So thank you very much, BookTube, and I'll see you next week.